UnitedHealth stock UNH just fell sub $300 once again as of July 10th, 2025. And this is not really surprising because we have had a litany of allegations going all the way back to May 14th. And we actually do have some developments on this as well. And on top of that, because there's been a lot of insider buying here and there, there's actually a decent amount of people, myself included, that are actually bullish on the company, believe it or not. Yes, I am still bullish on the company, and I'm not the only one that thinks so. In fact, from long investors on Twitter, we actually do have analyst expectations as to what the company should be valued at once these allegations go away and it ends up being a quote-unquote nothing burger. So let's actually take a look at what in the world has been happening with UNH as of recently. For starters, if you remember, UNH back on May 14th experienced a massive Wall Street Journal allegation claiming that the company is being investigated by the DOJ, the Department of Justice, over their Medicare Advantage program that is taking advantage of people by raising prices and denying people care. And this was a major blow to the company, bringing the initial stock price from upwards of $600, I mean, peak at $630, all the way to now a half, more than half, to $299.51. Now, when this originally occurred, UnitedHealth Group responded saying, "We have not been notified by the Department of Justice of the supposed criminal investigation reported without official attribution in the Wall Street Journal to date. The Wall Street Journal's reporting is deeply irresponsible, as even it admits the exact nature of potential criminal allegations is quote-unquote unclear." So even the Wall Street Journal in this article didn't even come out that it's actually happening or like what's actually going on. They basically just said that it's unclear, we have no idea what's going on, but it is happening. Trust us, bro, it is happening. So UnitedHealth did come out with this very short memo saying that this has not been mentioned to us in the slightest, and we stand with the integrity of the Medicare Advantage program. Well, unfortunately, we have more developments on this, because as of July 9th, we got prosecutors question doctors about UnitedHealthcare's Medicare billing practices. Justice Department prosecutors recently interviewed former employees about companies' practices that boost federal payments. In fact, we got a small thing right over here that says the Justice Department Criminal Healthcare Fraud Unit is investigating UNH's Medicare billing practices, including how the company's giant deployed doctors and nurses to gather diagnoses that bolstered its payments. People familiar with the matter said. Now, the fact of the matter is that whenever I read anything that says people familiar with the matter said, it already puts up a massive red flag for me. I don't necessarily trust these kind of things. However, the Department of Justice Criminal Healthcare Unit investigating UNH could be plausible. That doesn't necessarily have to be false, but this specific claim of how Medicare billing practices, including on how giant companies deploy doctors and nurses to gather diagnoses that bolstered its payments, they're basically saying that UNH was basically paying doctors to overdiagnose people in order to charge them more when things weren't actually happening. I would actually argue that is a overall issue with the whole healthcare industry, not just UNH, and just the whole entire medical industry as a whole, not just UNH. And of course, we also got a response to that article by UNH as well, UnitedHealth Group. This is the response to the July 9th Wall Street Journal article. It's actually a little bit of a long one. It says, "We stand firmly behind the integrity of our Medicare Advantage business and positive impact it delivers to millions of seniors across the country. As an important public sector partner serving people's health needs, we expect and welcome regular reviews of our policies and practices. Our operations are governed by strict federal regulations and subject to rigorous oversight, driving transparency and compliance with CMS requirements." And I gotta be honest, I honestly think that this is honestly what really is happening. I personally believe that UNH and every other healthcare company, they're basically trying to meet the minimum requirements as per government regulation allows. I think that all companies try to do that. They don't try to overdo, right, what they should do, but they just meet as much as they can, right? It's similar to like how, yes, you can pay more taxes if you want, but most people just pay what they need, and then that's about it, right? You don't usually tend to go beyond the regulations as it is written. Today's article from the Wall Street Journal represents continuation of its sustained campaign against Medicare Advantage, relying on incomplete data, predetermined narrative, and flawed understanding of how Medicare Advantage program works. Independent CMS audits confirms we are among the most accurate in the industry in our coding practices, demonstrating our commitment to integrity and compliance. Additionally, after more than a decade of similar Department of Justice challenges to our Medicare Advantage business, the special master concluded there was no evidence to support the claim that they were overpaid or engaged in any wrongdoings. Again, this is not the first time that a Medicare giant like this has gone through these things, right? It's very common for big businesses like this to constantly be hit with a litany of just allegations. So it's not really surprising that they already passed these kinds of several audits before in the past. And this is just my personal opinion, but I kind of believe them. I don't think that a company this big could get away with such a fraud without it being brought up to the table years ago, right? I just do not believe that. It doesn't make any sense in the slightest. And on X, the long investor posts, UNH, what could happen when the investigations materialize as nothing burger, which I personally believe this will be the case. 24 analysts have given a fair value of $1,246. And in fact, if we actually take a look at my own assumptions using discounted free cash flow, we can actually see something really interesting. Now, we already know how the fundamentals of this look like. They look amazing, guys, right? Aside from last year, which they had that cybersecurity breach, every single year has just been tremendous, every single time. So I don't really see this as an issue when it comes to the company fundamentally, right? This was a company that for months now I've been saying that the fundamentals look fake because they look so perfect, aside from just last year, and it was mainly because of that. But if we actually take a look at the discounted free cash flow very quickly, we can see that the average revenue to free cash flow growth is a 6.2%. The average net income growth, 24.04%. And when it comes to the average share change, they've actually been buying back shares pretty consistently at around 0.81%. And if we actually assume somewhat of these percentages into the next 10 years, for example, a free cash flow to revenue of 3, 5, and 7% for the low, median, high assumption, a net income growth of 15, 16, and 17%, a PE of 12, 13, and 15, a share change of 0, 0.5, and 1% positive, meaning that they will be buying back. And lastly, a discount rate of 9, 8, and 7%. We could see that the overall share prices for the company should be worth at around $659.91, which is pretty close to the all-time high that we just got earlier this year, all the way up to a high assumption of, look at that, $1,263.57. Very, very close to that $1,246 that these 24 analysts have mentioned. Very, very interesting. So yeah, my calculator is basically saying that, yeah, the company should be worth basically what the analysts are saying. Take that obviously with a grain of salt, because if things do go the opposite direction, then it could end up going really, really bad. But again, that is a risk that you kind of have to take when it comes to these things. I'm personally am willing to take that risk. I do own UNH, and I'm not ashamed of it either. So looking at this, we can see that, yes, with a current share price of $300, this is looking like an insane buy, right? Even if it were to just meet the minimum requirements and just go up to all-time high again, which is roughly around $660 or so, guys, that would still be a 50% gain practically overnight if the allegations turn out to be non-conclusive, right? If the allegations turn out to be a nothing burger, then you're minimum going to see all-time highs again, which is a 50% rise in the share price. Really, really nice to see. And not to mention as well, the company does pay out a dividend, which is a really, really good dividend too, 2.92%. I know, rather small. However, in comparison to what it was yielding way long ago, it's actually really, really high right now. Payout ratio of 30.04%, a 5-year CAGR of 13.64, 15 consecutive years of dividend payment. And we could see that prior to the share price falling, the dividend yield was at around 1.5%. So right now you're getting near 3%, which is again, really, really good to see. And if these things turn out to be nothing, you will lock in a near 3% on a company that has amazing fundamentals. So just keep that in mind. And if we consider this dividend end application, we can see that if we were to put in $6,215, this would net you around $33.22 per annual dividends. So as it currently stands, UNH is still a major risk. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is absolutely a major risk. However, if you believe that the company is going to come out of this DOJ probe unscathed, man, the upside is insane. Absolutely insane. Making you upwards of $1,000, assuming that those analysts are correct and my discounted free cash flow on the high end is correct. You would be making $1,000, basically very close to $1,000 per share if it does go to near $1,300, right? So 1,300 minus 300, that's $1,000 gain per share. So a lot of gains, right? A lot of gains to have. A lot of risk though, a lot of risk. But I personally believe that a company this big, something like this is not going to stick. They have tens of hundreds of others every single year. Nothing will get away from them. It's just not going to happen. I don't foresee this to go any further. It might drag it out, but I don't foresee this going any further into this company getting completely destroyed from the face of the S&P 500. So that pretty much does it, guys, for this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Really does help with the algorithm on YouTube as well as Rumble. Make sure to follow us on X at Fatal Investing. And of course, if you'd like to join us on the Discord, the link to that is in the description below. So with that said, peace out, and we will see you all next time.